Hey Runner Mustangs, it's Miss Gillum. I just wanted to send out a quick pep talk for your STAAR test. I do this every year, and I felt even though I'm not there, I can still give you a little support before your big test tomorrow. Remember, you are capable of amazing things, and I know you've been well prepared even though I was not there second semester. Know that my thoughts and positive vibes are being sent your way. Okay, before you take your test tomorrow, remember to sleep at least 8 hours. I know some of you think that you can go on 4 or 5 hours playing your Fortnite. Turn it off tonight. Hopefully parents are listening to this. Take those devices away. They do not need them every night. Put them away, lock them away, turn them off. Get a good 8 hours of sleep. Also, very important to eat a healthy breakfast. My fourth graders just took their end of year test, and I could clearly see that some of my students had ate breakfast and they were ready to go, and some kind of had a struggle in the morning and had to eat snacks a lot earlier than they normally would. Do not stress out about this test. Remember, one test does not define you. Just give your best, and that's all we ask. Bring snacks, but make sure the snacks that you're bringing are not messy, like hot Cheetos, anything where you have to wash your hands, and also anything that is crunchy or makes a lot of noise, because other students are going to be testing while you're testing. Sorry for the background noise. I'm outside recording. And last, bring a water. Bring a water bottle. Keep yourself hydrated. It makes your brain function a lot better when your body is hydrated. During your test, remember that you can do this. You have been well prepared. Miss Regal, Miss Powers, and Miss Ray have prepared you for this test along with myself during first semester. Remember to read every question at least twice. If you cannot repeat the question back without looking at the paper, you haven't read it well enough. Make sure you are answering the questions being asked. This is a problem I see with a lot of students. You answer a question, but it might not be the question that was actually asked of you. And don't forget to eliminate those wrong answers. Remember, the writers of this test used to be teachers, and they know the silly mistakes that students make. And those are going to be some of the wrong answers. Eliminate those stupid answers quickly. Check all your calculations. If you do a calculation twice and you get the same answer, more than likely you're correct. Make a list of the questions to check over. I will go in more detail about number 6 on another slide, since I wasn't there to actually show you what I mean by checking your list of questions to check over. Lastly, or 7, use your reference sheet. They have it there for a reason. I've seen so many students taking the STAAR test totally ignoring their reference sheet. There is information that is valuable for you. Use it for those volume formulas or conversions. And then take a deep breath. You prepared for this. You can do this. Let's take a look real quick at your reference sheet and some things to remember before taking the test. So for the area of a triangle, it's 1/2 base times height. Remember, you can also think of this as base times height divided by 2. But also remember your height. So if I had a triangle, my height has to be vertical. This side is not the height. The height has to be going from the lowest point of the triangle to the highest point of the triangle. Okay. Next, you have a rectangle is base times height. So think about your rectangle or parallelogram. You have your base, you have your height. Base for triangle, this is the height for the triangle. Okay, lastly, you have a trapezoid, and I put it down here at the bottom. So it's 1/2. Remember, you have to add base 1 plus base 2. So this is base 1, this is your base 2. Add those together, times that by your height. Remember, your height is in the middle. These are not your height because they're slanted. Just like when you go to the doctor, they don't measure you when you're slanted. They ask you to stand straight up. Lastly, you have the rectangular prism, which is base, and it's a capital B time height. So the difference with the capital B, it's whatever the base of the prism is. So the base for the rectangular prism is a rectangle. So you would think as length times width times height. And what I recommend doing at the very beginning of your test is going to this formula sheet and writing the volume is length times width times height, so you don't get in a rush and accidentally do just the base times the height. instead of the length times the width times the height. Okay, so this is the conversion part of your reference sheet. This is very helpful if you're having to make converting from one measurement to another. Remember, these are all ratios, and you can use ratios to solve every single one of these. So for example, if they had like 12 feet and they wanted to know how many yards, you can set this up and say, okay, well, I know 1 yard is 3 feet. So I just took that straight from here, and I could say, but I have 12 feet. So how do you get from 3 feet to 12 feet? Well, you multiply by 4, so you can do the same thing because that's how ratios work. So you would have 4 yards. Sometimes you're going to have to do multi-step conversions. So let's say you have 2 gallons, and they want to know how many cups you have. So this one you would have to set up, well, what do I know? If you look here, you know that 1 gallon, that 1 gallon is 4 quarts, but we have to get to cups. But first we start with what we know. Well, we have 2 gallons. So to get from 1 to 2 is multiply by 2, so I need to do 4 times 2. So I have 8 quarts. So then you go down, okay, well, I know that 1 quart is 2 pints, but I have 8 quarts. So I'm just taking the 8 from here and plugging it in to there. And so this is 1 times 8, so 2 times 8, which is 16. So I have 16 pints. And then your last step would be like, okay, I have 1 pint is 2 cups, but I have 16 pints. Oh, so that means this is times 2, or times 16. This is times 16, so that means I have 32 cups. So you have to just keep writing those ratios until you get to the conversion they've asked for. So, but everything I used was right here. So just use your reference sheet wisely, because everything you need, if it's talking about converting, is on this sheet. Let's talk about reading the question carefully. This is one of those types of problems that students miss simply because they did not read the question carefully. A store manager analyzed the change in sales of various products from last month to this month. The percent increases and decreases in sales are shown in the table. These values will be ordered from greatest to least. We always want to do least to greatest. So always highlight, use your highlighter, your pencil, circle that up, and make sure that you are going from greatest to least if it asks that, or least to greatest depending what it asked. So then it says which lists the products. Also in this problem, be careful, there are negatives and positive numbers. So you need to make sure that you are thinking about the negatives and positives. So which one would be the greatest? Well, 3% would be your greatest. So ties would be first. And then if you would eliminate any of the ones that don't say ties, now you're already down to 2 answers, just by simply finding the greatest. So then you can see ties, shoes, and then the difference next one is watches, pants. So look at your watches, look at your pants. Which one is greater? Well, if you think about them as negative, you want the smaller negative is going to be closer to 0. You're looking for the number that's closer to 0. Well, this is a whole -1 away from 0, where this is only -3/10 away from 0. So watches is greater than pants. So B would have to be your answer. So I chose this question to go over because I have seen it in so many really STAAR questions or similar forms that I'm pretty sure there will be something very similar to it on your test. So remember at the beginning of the year we talked about how you read fractions as division problems, that every fraction is a division problem. So you always start from the top and you read it as 3 divided by 12. And if you think about this, 3 divided by 12, and you write it the way you read it. So that eliminates B, and that also eliminates D. So now you're down to A and C. So the difference between A and C is this and this. Well, if you think about this fraction, 3/12, it's less than a whole. And if you actually work this out, you know that you would put a 4 up here. So this would be 4 wholes, where this, you would have to place a 0 and add a decimal. So the only one that makes sense is first C to be the right answer. So another question they like to ask is always to write equivalent values of fractions, decimals, and percents. So this question said, a coat is discounted for 40% off its regular price. Which value is equivalent to 40% off? Well, we know every percent is out of 100, so start with thinking, okay, 40 out of 100. And then that should help you eliminate. Well, you should know that 40% is not the same thing as 40 because it's not a whole. And then if you think of 40 hundredths and you think about decimals, you should be able to think, okay, so that's 40 hundredths because those are your hundredths place values. So that would mean that it cannot be B. So now you're down to 2 other options. Well, if you think about creating equivalent ratios, for example, like this, and determining which one is a true statement. So here you can think, oh, divide by 4. So this would need to divide by 4, which 40 divided by 4 is 10, not 1. So this cannot be a true statement. Here we have 100 divided by 20, which is 5, and 40 divided by 20, which is 2. So check, that is right. So take the time and think about everything you've learned this year about ratios, fractions, decimals, percents. Take the time and work every problem out. You have hours to take this test. So now we have to remember order of operations in this problem. Parentheses or brackets or any type of grouping goes first. Then you do your exponents. Multiplication, division go left to right. We must remember that. And adding, subtracting go left to right. So there is a parentheses in this problem, so we would work that out first. So we have 3 to the 4th power minus 2 to the 3rd power times, and we're going to go ahead and solve. 5 minus 2 is 3 minus 60. Write PEMDAS off to the side and then just check mark. Okay, I have all the parentheses, I'm done. Then we have exponents next, where you have to remember 3 to the 4th power does not mean 3 times 4. It means 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, which we know this is 9. This is 9, so 9 times 9 is 81. So we have 81 minus, then we have 2 to the 3rd power, which means 2 times 2 times 2. So this is 4 times 2 more, which is 8. Times 3 minus 60. Take the time and work out each step first. Now we have to take care of our multiplication. So 81 minus 8 times 3 is 24 minus 60. So then we subtract left to right. 81 minus 24. So we have 7. Don't forget to borrow because this became 11. 7 minus 2 is 5. So I have 57. So sorry I ran out of room. So I'm coming over here. 57 minus 60, which would be a negative 3. One of my favorite things to teach is distributive property. So in this problem, remember, any number outside a parenthesis means to multiply. And if there's more than one thing inside the parenthesis, that means you're multiplying both of them. But if you look at this x, you're like, well, what do I multiply x by? Remember we talked about that x, when it's by itself, there is an invisible 1 here because it means 1x. So then you would just have to do 3 times 1x, which gives you 3x. And then you would have to do 3 times 6, which gives you 18. And you see that answer is D. And if you work this out, you can see here that A would be x plus, because remember you have to combine like terms, like circle those regular numbers. So, and then x was the only x, so I boxed that. So that would be x plus 12. 3x plus 6 is simplified. And this one would be x plus 9. So those do not represent the same thing. So remember, distributive property, you distribute to both. Just like when the mail carrier comes around, he's distributing to all of the houses, not just the one with the variable. Okay, so more than likely, you are going to run into a problem that has fractions and decimals. So you have the choice of deciding, do I want to use fractions or do I want to use decimals? But sometimes the answers choose for you. So the answers are in decimal form. So you are going to want to change your fractions to decimals. And remember we talked about if you think 3/5 you can change that into a tenth by timesing by 2. So you times your numerator by 2, and so this is 6/10. So 2 3/5 is equivalent to 2 6/10, which can also be written as 2. And remember this first place value. I've been teaching my 4th graders that, converting tenths and hundredths to decimals. So I know you can do this in 6th grade. So then it says, a grocery store sells a steak for $6.10 per pound. What would be the cost for 2 3/5 pounds? So we know that 2 3/5 pounds is 2 6/10 pounds as well. So then we're going to have to multiply $6.10 times 2 6/10. And remember, when you're multiplying, do not worry about the decimals. Multiply as normal, and then you are going to go back and worry about the decimals at the end. So 6 times 0 is 0. 6 times 1, 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Don't forget that placeholder because this is a 20. 20 times 0 is 0. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 6 is 12. So placeholder 6, 8, 5, 1. Now, how many numbers do we have behind the decimal total? We have 3. So 1, 2, 3. So $15.86. Even if you weren't sure where to put the decimal, if you would have multiplied and was able to get these numbers, you can tell that the only possible answer is $15.86. So I was not there when you guys learned about inequalities. So let's work this problem out together. Aiko is selling books for $12 each. She wants to make more than $180. So she wants to make more than that. The inequality, 12b, is greater than 180. Oh, they wrote it for you. So I'm going to bring this out over here for us to look at a little closer. Okay, can be used to determine the number of books. So this represents books. So we know that this is $12 times the number of books. Okay, she must sell in order to meet her goal. So you would solve this the same way you solve equations. So if I have 12b is greater than 180, to get rid of this 12, we would have to divide 12 because we do the opposite and divide 12 over here. This will cancel. You have b left over, so think 12, 180. 12 will go into 180. We'll go into 18 one time, which is 12 left over, 60, and then it's 5. So b must be greater than 15. Which you kind of knew it had to be 15 if you looked where all of these answers are. So now we have to think, is it open circle or closed circle? Well, if it has a line, if it says equal to, that's a closed circle because they're saying, hey, it can be this number. So, but this one does not have a closed circle. It's an open circle. So C and D are eliminated. Next, we know that this says greater than. So A is the only one because B is showing less than. So that's all I have for you. If you have any questions or anything you would like to see one more time, please feel free to message me. I'll be more than happy to make a quick video because my 4th graders, we're winding down the year, so we have nothing major going on currently. So always remember, you are braver than you believe, stronger than you seem, and smarter than you think. And take your time on this test. You have too much time, actually, but you will do great. You have got this. I believe in you. Have a great testing week.